Well guys, I couldn't get Retro, but oh well. Let's talk about the Retro VGS. Alright, let me start with a short history of what the Retro VGS is, how it came about, and what it's trying to do. The Retro VGS is a new console that Mike Kennedy is trying to bring to the market, and you might notice that it looks a lot like an Atari Jaguar. The reason for that is because in December of last year, he bought the molds that were used to make the original Jaguar, and he bought those with the intent to make his own console with his business partner Steve Wioda. Apparently they initially wanted to pursue plug-and-plays, but that idea never went anywhere. According to them, reusing the Jaguar mold saved them up to $500,000 in tooling costs. In March, they added John Carlson to the team and began hyping the console. They plan to price this console at around $150, with a small chance of it getting up to $180. The console would bring retro-style indie games back to the golden era of cartridges. Ever since it was first announced, we knew that they planned to go to Kickstarter. And according to them, they were waiting to have a working prototype before they launched their campaign. They also announced that the console would be built around an FPGA chip. This would give their system capabilities that only a few PC hobbyists have been able to enjoy. This idea attracted critics ever since it stepped out the door. But that's to be expected. It is kind of a strange idea. It was clear that they were aiming for a niche in the market, but so far so good. Then about 30 days ago, a huge bombshell dropped. During a panel at a gaming expo, they announced that the price would now be north of $300. Overnight, this divided the fanbase between those who were willing to pay a premium price and those who weren't. And their list of fans took another toll when they announced that they would be switching from Kickstarter to Indiegogo just 2 days before the campaign started. And believe it or not, I may have played a role in that switch. You see, about 2 weeks before the campaign started, they posted a photo showing a cardboard PCB being fitted into the case. Of course, this was a preliminary design. But it got me thinking, if they're willing to show cardboard to us, where's the prototype? I went on NeoGAF and explained that Kickstarter requires a working prototype, and forbids photorealistic rendering. And now this week during the campaign, the team was trying to explain why they went to Indiegogo instead of Kickstarter. Their explanation was that someone on NeoGAF had explained the rules to them, and a lot of people are interpreting that as the post that I made. But that really blows my mind. How did they get this far without understanding Kickstarter's rules? And why do they need some jerk like me to explain it to them? They obviously didn't read Kickstarter's rules. Had they known the rules, they probably wouldn't have invested so much in 3D rendering. Either way, the campaign is live on Indiegogo right now without a prototype. The funding is going nowhere fast. And this campaign has many problems, too many to fit in this video, so I'm not even going to touch some of them. But the crux of the issue for most people is that they don't have a prototype. Before we go any further, I need to give a disclaimer. While I was editing this, John Carlson posted a video of what he claims is a stripped-down version of a Retro VGS prototype. It's obvious that this was made in a hurry to fight off the critics. But people are doubting whether this is a prototype at all. They don't show the board, and the screen is out of focus, but some people are reporting that it shows software that comes with off-the-shelf development kits. He even has the box in the background. So this doesn't look like something they made, it looks like something that came in the mail. I'm pretty lenient when it comes to what fits the definition of a prototype. But I have a hard time believing that this is anything resembling a prototype of their game console. And it seems I'm not the only one. Their campaign has actually lost money ever since the video was posted. I don't even know if we'll see more of it because he claims he wants to patent a few things first. But whatever this thing is, I just wanted to add this disclaimer here. And I'm not even sure they understand how important having a prototype actually is. It seems like they think the prototype is just another item to check off a list of things they should have done. And their Facebook posts indicate they think they're being punished for launching on Indiegogo. They claim that they could have launched on Kickstarter if they wanted to. What they don't understand is that the last-minute switch to Indiegogo was rightly interpreted by many as verification that they have no prototype. I should remind you that before the launch of their campaign, and even after Indiegogo had been announced, they were sidestepping and avoiding discussion about the prototype by any means possible. So imagine what it feels like to find out that despite their promise to launch only when they had a working prototype, they then revealed that they want the public to give them blind faith and fund their prototype development instead.
So we can't take a loss on this hardware because that comes right out of our wallets. We can't do that. I'm not that philanthropic.
The project has been harshly criticized, and not having a prototype creates a vicious cycle. First, the Retro VGS team makes their pitch. This is their standard pitch about nostalgia, bringing back cartridges, etc., etc. In response to this, people have some very important questions to ask about their hardware. But of course the team doesn't have a prototype, so they can't really answer anything. And that results in a lot of criticism. The team doesn't really have any way to fight off the criticism, so they just reiterate their pitch. And occasionally they'll play the victim, or claim the criticism is unfair, or even lash out. Either way, the cycle continues and the criticism becomes louder and louder. A prototype could easily put an end to this cycle before it even began. A working prototype is the cornerstone that you need when crowdfunding a product. There is no getting around that. It proves that your idea can get off the ground and that you've been working hard on it before asking the public to take on the risk. Okay, so barring some miracle, this project is going nowhere. So why do I care about it so much? The reason why is because I am obsessed with the mind that crafted this project. Mike Kennedy has already constructed a fantasy land for his console to inhabit before the console even exists. In my opinion, it is by far the most interesting part of this whole project. Let's just call this imaginary place Retroland. You really have to listen for it, but during podcast interviews, Mike will go into this whole stream of consciousness where he's vividly describing this place he imagines. It truly is amazing. From what I've been able to gather, Retroland exists on like almost an alternate timeline. It's a place where the 8 and 16-bit era never ended, where broken and buggy games don't exist. A place where printed gaming magazines, such as Retro Magazine, are still very popular. The citizens of Retroland value exclusivity and collectability over all else, and they don't even ask for updates or add-on content, which is convenient because Retroland burned Al Gore at the stake for practicing a brand of witchcraft known as the Internet. Big publishers want to leave the present day behind and visit Retroland as well, and bring their popular series back to cartridges with retro-style graphics.
But how cool would it be to have like a 16-bit Call of Duty or a 16-bit Bioshock?
Retroland also has a graveyard of dead IPs from the 8 and 16-bit era, just waiting to be resurrected at a moment's notice. And licensing fees are as simple as a check from grandma. And I have so many questions about Retroland that I want to ask. Does Retroland have an ESRB board? Does a company like LJN exist in Retroland? Will the Retro VGS games go through the same gradual technological advances as the 8 and 16-bit eras? Or is it like some sort of never-ending Renaissance fair? If technology in Retroland does progress, are we going to see that awkward transition period where games are trying to get into 3D, but they can't get the controls and camera right? Do people grow older in Retroland? Oh wait, that's Neverland. Sorry, forget I asked that. I am fascinated when Mike describes Retroland. And my favorite Retroland trip was when Mike's imagination crossed paths with Willy Wonka. Just listen.
One of the things I thought would be really neat, and you guys can let me know if this would be cool or not, would be to, whatever the first run of cartridges that we have, like maybe the first 500 or the first 1,000, we do in a special color. And they get randomly inserted into, retail boxes in various places. So, you buy a game someplace and you unwrap it, you open it up, and it's like, holy crap. Yeah, 1 of 500, You got the golden ticket. Yeah, Willy Wonka. Just have fun with it.
Some people are obsessed with Tolkien's Middle-earth. I'm obsessed with Mike Kennedy's Retroland. What amazes me is that he doesn't have a prototype, but he already knows how he wants his console to interact with the market. It's a completely backwards way of developing a product. Even back then, the console makers didn't really care about that part. They just wanted to make sales numbers. If an idea didn't hold water, then it was canned. Whether gamers wanted to see it or not, because an idea has to sell first. Who cares about how people interact with the product? At this stage, Mike's main obsession should be getting a running prototype, and a realistic sense for the size of his market. You guys probably think I'm kidding you, but I really have studied this guy. He even believes in some weird form of predestination.
And when we're done rebranding it, it's going to look great. And so it is what it is. I mean, it's literally the reason. The Atari Jaguar is the reason that this is happening. And that the people, for whatever reason, for the last 20 whatever years, never destroyed those molds. And I just think that was for a reason. And the reason is the Retro VGS.
Awesome.
The sense of destiny to it now.
I was going to say, man, I'm not a man who subscribes to ideas of fate, but this might be fate.
Mike and the Retro VGS were meant to be. I can't take my eyes off them. But unfortunately, we may never get to see Retroland, since our only transportation to get there is the Retro VGS, and the funding campaign for that is currently stalling. But even if they had a flawless campaign set up and a prototype, I've always said that the market for this thing is nowhere near enough people to sustain it, or even to bring it to its funding goal. And the funny thing is, I am the market for this thing. I love IndieBox, so I like getting indie and retro-style games in physical media. But if IndieBox told me I needed to buy a $350 console, pay $50 per game, and pay outrageous prices for collectible paint, I'd tell them to fuck off. The Retro VGS is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. If you have a cheap laptop and an Xbox 360 controller, then you already own the best retro indie gaming console ever made. It's almost offensive that they would think retro gamers would buy into something like this. Why would you buy a new console that's trying to be retro when there are so many real retro consoles out there that are much cheaper and much more fun to own? Even the Atari Jaguar is a retro console with an unappreciated library of exclusive games, and you could buy one today for less than what they're asking for a retro VGS. Or you could get a Super NES, they even make reproduction cartridges. Or how about an N64? Cartridge-based consoles didn't end with the 16-bit era, so I don't know why they think theirs carries the torch that was left behind. Part of what makes retro gaming such a wonderful hobby is the sense of discovery. It's like being a video game archaeologist. So go out there and discover. Pick up a cheap retro console you've never played before and dive into its library. I do know what retro is when I see it, and the Retro VGS has none of it. Their Indiegogo is an exercise in how not to launch a campaign. The page is littered with collectible this and exclusive that. It's all designed to separate your common sense from your wallet. And having stretch goals to design a more capable system is pathetic. A good crowdfunding idea should be trying to deliver the best possible product to its backers, not lure them into the stretch goals. This couldn't be more of a retro pyramid scheme if they were trying to recreate the pyramids of Giza. Oh wait, is that too retro for them? Don't let them string you along with emotional appeals and nostalgia, because this is simply a cash grab.
I was on a podcast this morning, not to drag this out any longer, but they were asking, do you think you're cashing in on the nostalgia, factor or something? I said, well, I mean, I'm cashing in as much as Yacht Club is, as much as Brian Provinciano is, I'm doing this for myself.
Guys, be careful out there. If you're a retro gamer, then you are in a niche part of the market that's booming right now. And there are plenty of traveling salesmen out there with their eyes on your wallet. Let me buy the shit. Leave that to me. I don't want you guys to fall for it. And that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.